Beneath the desert sands lie the ghosts of entire cities. These lost megacities, once hubs of immense wealth and innovation, hold secrets that fundamentally reshaped human civilization. By the end of this journey, you will understand how the fate of these ancient giants directly informs the challenges our modern world faces today. We will explore why bustling metropolises were suddenly abandoned and what forces buried them for centuries. How much of our own civilization is built upon the forgotten lessons of the past? Markets once overflowed with spices and textiles, their crowded streets echoing with a dozen different languages. This was the vibrant heart of a megacity. Then silence fell. A lost megacity is far more than a collection of old ruins. It represents a major urban center, a place of immense influence and population that vanished not just from the map, but from humanity's collective memory. Historians such as Dr. Elena Vance describe these sites as having populations in the tens of thousands, wielding significant regional power. Their sudden and complete disappearance presents one of history's most compelling puzzles. The process of being lost typically involves a dramatic depopulation, whether sudden or gradual. The city is then reclaimed by the environment, most famously by the relentless drift of desert sands, which acts as a perfect preservative, sealing structures and artifacts in a dry tomb. Finally, and perhaps most crucially, the cultural thread is severed. The knowledge of who built it, why it was abandoned, and even its original name can fade into legend. Consider Ubar, a fabled trading hub in the Arabian desert, known as the Atlantis of the Sands. For centuries, it was dismissed as mere folklore, a cautionary tale from the 1001 Nights. Then, in the late 20th century, archaeologists using satellite imagery and ground surveys found its remains, proving a mythical city was once a very real center of commerce and culture. This concept forces us to confront the fragility of our own urban centers. What does it truly mean for a city to be lost? It is to lose a chapter of the human story, a repository of knowledge and innovation. Recovering these places does more than just fill in blank spots on a historical timeline. It fundamentally changes our understanding of human resilience, ingenuity, and the complex forces that can cause a civilization to simply vanish from sight. The prosperity of any great city rests on a fragile foundation of climate stability. Envision a thriving metropolis, its granaries full and its people secure, all thanks to predictable seasonal rains and fertile soil. Then picture that lifeline slowly, inexorably vanishing. Decades of relentless drought transform the surrounding countryside into a cracked and barren wasteland. This is not a scene from a dystopian film, but a historical reality that has toppled civilizations. Expert climatologist Dr. Liam Chen points to prolonged arid periods, like the global event that occurred around 4,200 years ago, as a primary driver of mass migration. When the rains failed for generations, entire populations had no choice but to move in search of water, leaving their stone and brick cities to the mercy of the encroaching desert. The collapse was not just about a lack of rainfall, it was a cascading failure. Declining groundwater levels made wells run dry. Intensive farming, desperate to feed a large population, led to severe soil erosion, stripping the land of its last vestiges of fertility. In the Indus Valley, for example, the mighty river courses that sustained cities like Mohenjo-Daro shifted dramatically over time. What was once a reliable source of water and rich silt for agriculture became a distant memory, forcing the inhabitants to abandon their homes. Perhaps the most striking example lies in the Sahara Desert. It is difficult to believe today, but this vast ocean of sand was once a greener land, dotted with lakes and savannas. Here, the Garamantes built a powerful civilization with capital cities that thrived on a sophisticated network of underground tunnels, drawing water from ancient aquifers. Their oasis cities were hubs of trade and culture until the climate continued its slow, relentless drying. The aquifers were depleted, the oases shrank, and the desert sands finally reclaimed what was once a testament to human ingenuity. These stories illustrate a terrifyingly simple truth. Environmental stability is the bedrock of urban life. When that foundation crumbles, even the most advanced societies can be erased from the earth in a matter of centuries. As we look at our own modern megacities, grappling with rising temperatures and changing weather patterns, we must ask ourselves a difficult question. Are we any less vulnerable to the same forces that silenced these ancient wonders? This relationship between human ambition and an unforgiving climate sets the stage for our first great lost city, a place that mastered its environment for centuries, the rose-red city of Petra. A narrow canyon opens to reveal majestic temples hewn directly from vibrant red cliffs. This is Petra, the rose-red city, a place that did not simply exist in the desert but conquered it. Founded by the Nabateans around the 4th century before the Common Era, this city became the undisputed linchpin of trade routes connecting Arabia, Egypt, and the Mediterranean. Its immense wealth flowed from the control of incense and spice caravans, but its true genius lay in its mastery of a far more precious resource, water. In a landscape defined by aridity, Petra thrived. Archaeologist Dr. Sarah Jenkins points to their advanced hydrological engineering as the key to their survival. They constructed a complex network of dams to divert flash floods and carved vast cisterns directly into the rock to capture and store every drop of rain. This system allowed them to support a population of tens of thousands, transforming a barren gorge into a lush, defensible metropolis. The city itself is a testament to its role as a cultural crossroads. The iconic treasury and the towering monastery are not purely Nabatean designs. They are a breathtaking fusion of Hellenistic, Egyptian, and native styles, a stone tapestry woven from the many cultures that met and traded within its walls. Excavations reveal a full and vibrant urban center with bustling markets, elaborate tombs, and even a grand theater carved into the mountainside. This was a sophisticated society capable of great artistic and economic achievement. Yet, for all its resilience, Petra was not immune to the shifting tides of history and nature. After its annexation by the Roman Empire, trade routes began to bypass the city, slowly choking its economic lifeblood. Then, in the year 363, a massive earthquake struck, crippling the vital water management system that had sustained it for centuries. The population dwindled, and over time the desert sands swept in, burying the rose-red city and its secrets. Petra's story is a powerful lesson in vulnerability. It shows that even the most ingeniously engineered city, a place that seemingly tamed its environment, can fall. Its dramatic rise and fall sets the stage for another desert giant, whose story is equally magnificent and ultimately even more tragic, the caravan city of Palmyra. A caravan laden with silk and spices finds respite not just in water, but in a city of astonishing cultural fusion. This was Palmyra, the shimmering oasis metropolis that became a nerve center of the ancient world. By the 1st century of the Common Era, its strategic position in the Syrian desert made it an indispensable stop on the Silk Road, a place where the titans of Rome and Persia met and mingled. Historian Dr. Omar Khalid points to Palmyra's genius for diplomacy. its ability to navigate the complex politics between empires, which fostered a uniquely cosmopolitan society. Here, diverse religions were practiced and a multitude of languages echoed through the streets, creating a vibrant tapestry of tolerance and wealth. This prosperity was etched in stone. Grand colonnaded avenues stretched for miles, guiding merchants and travelers past magnificent public buildings. The Temple of Bel stood as a monumental testament to this fusion, blending Greco-Roman architectural forms with Persian and Mesopotamian deities. Elaborate tower tombs built by wealthy families reached for the sky, their intricate carvings preserving the faces and fashions of a people confident in their place in the world. But this cultural and architectural splendor was built on a foundation of commerce and security. In-depth studies show that Palmyra's economy thrived by taxing the endless flow of luxury goods and by providing safe passage through the treacherous desert. This created an immensely powerful merchant class, a class whose ambition would eventually challenge the might of Rome itself. That challenge was personified by Queen Zenobia, who led a famous revolt and briefly carved out an empire of her own. Her defiance, however, led to a brutal Roman response. In the year 273, the legions of Emperor Aurelian sacked the city, crushing its political power and marking the beginning of its long decline. Over the centuries, the desert sands blew in, silently preserving its grand ruins as a monument to a lost era of exchange and coexistence. This preservation, however, has faced tragic new threats in recent conflicts, raising a profound question. How does the legacy of a place like Palmyra, a symbol of cultural fusion, inform our modern duty to protect such irreplaceable heritage? The story of this oasis giant reminds us that the sands can hide more than just cities. They can bury entire networks of civilization, like the sophisticated Saharan kingdoms of the Garamantes. Deep within the Sahara, where endless dunes now dominate the horizon, the Garamantes built a kingdom on water. This civilization, flourishing in what is now Libya for over 1,000 years, did not merely survive the desert, they mastered it by tapping into a hidden ocean beneath the sand. Their secret was an ingenious network of tunnels known as fagaras, subterranean channels that sloped gently for miles to draw ancient groundwater to the surface without it evaporating in the scorching sun. This hydrological marvel transformed patches of the desert into lush, fertile oases, supporting agriculture and sustaining their capital, Garama, a city of mud, brick, and stone that became a hub of commerce and culture. Archaeologist Dr. Anya Sharma emphasizes that this engineering prowess was the bedrock of their society, enabling them to cultivate grapes and wheat in the heart of the world's largest hot desert and to control vital trade routes. Their caravans carried gold, ivory, and other luxuries from sub-Saharan Africa to the Mediterranean coast, amassing wealth that funded a complex society. Excavations reveal not just sprawling settlements with defensive walls, but also vast cemeteries filled with grave goods, pointing to a society with clear social classes and far-reaching connections. Yet the very resource that gave them life also sealed their fate. Over centuries of relentless extraction, the prehistoric aquifers began to run dry. The fagaras, requiring immense labor to maintain, slowly fell into disrepair as the water table dropped beyond reach. This environmental strain was compounded by growing external pressures, including conflicts with the expanding Roman Empire. One by one, the oases that dotted their territory began to wither. The fields turned to dust, the trade routes shifted, and the people were forced to disperse. The desert sands, patient and relentless, then moved in to reclaim the cities and the intricate tunnels that had defied them for so long. The story of the Garamantes is a powerful dual lesson, a testament to brilliant human adaptation that ultimately could not outlast its own resource consumption. As we face our own challenges with depleting aquifers and a changing climate, their history poses a critical question. How do we balance our own engineering triumphs with the long-term sustainability of the resources we depend upon? This cautionary tale of a civilization that faded back into the sands leads us to another legendary city, one whose very existence was debated for centuries, the fabled Ubar. The legend of Ubar warns of a city punished for its pride, a place of towering pillars and immense wealth that vanished overnight. For centuries, scholars debated whether this Atlantis of the sands was pure fiction, a cautionary tale from the Quran and the Arabian Nights. Then, modern technology offered a startling answer. Explorer Sir Ranulph Fiennes and archaeologist Dr. Joris Zarins used satellite imagery to peer beneath the sands of the Rub al-Khali Desert in Oman. The photographs revealed the faint, ghostly outlines of ancient caravan tracks, all converging on a single point. Ground surveys confirmed it, the remains of a fortified city built around a crucial source of water. The evidence pointed to a bustling hub of the frankincense trade, a commodity as precious as gold in the ancient world. Ubar was real, but its discovery only deepened the mystery of its end. Excavations revealed that the city's center had not simply been buried, it had collapsed into a massive sinkhole. Experts theorize that the very foundation of Ubar's wealth led to its doom. For generations, its inhabitants drew water from underground caverns to sustain their city and water the camels of the endless trade caravans. This overexploitation of the aquifer, combined with possible seismic activity, caused the limestone roof of the caverns to give way. The city quite literally fell into the earth, an event so catastrophic it could only be explained as divine retribution, cementing its place in myth. The unearthed pottery and tools confirm a vibrant society connected to vast trade networks, yet the dramatic nature of its burial fueled stories that overshadowed its history. This interplay between legend and archaeology raises a profound question. Do these myths, born from cataclysm, ultimately help preserve the memory of a lost city, or do they obscure the more complex and often more cautionary truths of its collapse? The search for Ubar demonstrates that the sands hide not just cities, but also the very real human dramas that transform history into legend. Our journey now takes us east to a civilization whose disappearance is perhaps the most enigmatic of all, the sophisticated urban centers of the Indus Valley. The sophistication of the Indus Valley civilization would be remarkable even by modern standards. Across a vast expanse of what is now Pakistan and northwest India, its people built megacities like Mohenjo-Daro and Harappa with a level of planning that seems to defy their ancient origins. Wide, straight streets were laid out in a precise grid pattern, with entire neighborhoods dedicated to craftspeople and elaborate houses equipped with indoor bathrooms and wells. Beneath these orderly streets ran one of the world's first complex drainage systems, a network of covered channels that carried waste away from the city, a feat of public hygiene unmatched for thousands of years. This was not a society focused on glorifying kings. Archaeologist Dr. Priya Mehta highlights the striking absence of monumental palaces, grand temples, or royal tombs. Instead, the urban design, with its standardized brick sizes and consistent layouts replicated across hundreds of miles, points toward a form of early governance obsessed with communal welfare and practical efficiency. The entire civilization seems to have been organized around a shared ideal of orderly urban life. This remarkable social organization is further evidenced by the artifacts they left behind. Intricately carved seals depicting animals and bearing a script that remains undeciphered to this day suggest a system of record-keeping and ownership. Carefully standardized stone weights indicate a complex economy engaged in long-distance trade, with goods from the Indus Valley found as far away as ancient Mesopotamia. The centerpiece of Mohenjo-Daro, the Great Bath, is a large, waterproofed pool that likely served a ritual purpose, hinting at a society that valued both spiritual ceremony and physical cleanliness. Yet, for all their advancements, the civilization's end is shrouded in mystery. Why did such a stable and widespread society collapse? Theories abound, pointing to a major shift in the course of the life-giving rivers, or a prolonged period of climate change that turned fertile lands arid. The cities were not destroyed in a violent conquest. They were slowly, quietly abandoned, their brick buildings eventually buried by river silt and desert sands, preserving them for millennia but leaving behind no written history to explain their fate. The silence of the Indus Valley script is one of archaeology's most profound puzzles. Without a Rosetta Stone to unlock their language, we can only infer the details of their daily lives, their beliefs, and the structure of their government from the physical remains. This forces us to ask a difficult question. Can a civilization truly be considered lost if its cities are found, but its voice remains silent? The legacy of their urban planning, their focus on public works over personal glorification, offers a powerful lesson for our own crowded cities. It shows that a highly complex society can flourish without leaving behind the typical monuments to ego and power. The story of their disappearance serves as a quiet warning about the fragility of even the most well-planned societies in the face of environmental change. From the enigmatic silence of the Indus Valley, we turn to a city whose story ended not with a quiet whisper, but with a thunderous, deliberate roar, the legendary Port of Carthage. The salt scattered on its fields was meant to be a curse, a final act of annihilation. Yet the story of Carthage is one of stubborn rebirth. From its founding by Phoenician settlers in the 9th century before the Common Era, this North African metropolis grew to command the Mediterranean. Its wealth was legendary, built on a vast network of trade that stretched from the tin mines of Britain to the spice markets of the East. Historian Dr. Marcus Bell points to the city's mastery of commerce in metals, textiles, and agricultural goods, particularly the prized fruits from its lush hinterlands, as the engine of its power. This economic might funded a city of immense scale and sophistication, protected by towering walls and centered around its iconic, artificially constructed harbors. One was circular, a secure inner basin for the mighty Carthaginian navy, while a larger rectangular port handled the endless flow of merchant vessels. This was the heart of a maritime empire. That empire would inevitably clash with a rising power from the Italian peninsula, Rome. The 3 devastating Punic Wars that followed were a struggle for supremacy that reshaped the ancient world. The conflict produced one of history's most brilliant military minds, the Carthaginian general Hannibal, who famously led his army, including war elephants, across the Alps to strike at Rome itself. His campaigns are still studied today, but in the end, after a brutal siege in the year 146 before the Common Era, Roman legions broke through the city's defenses. What followed was not merely a conquest but an act of calculated erasure. The victorious Romans systematically demolished Carthage, building by building. They tore down its temples, shattered its walls, and, according to legend, sowed the fields with salt to symbolize that nothing should ever grow there again. The city was declared accursed, its people killed or enslaved, its very memory targeted for oblivion. For a time, it seemed the curse had worked. The desert sands, blowing in from the surrounding landscape, began to cover the scorched rubble. But cities, like ideas, are difficult to kill completely. A century later, the Romans themselves, recognizing the site's strategic value, founded a new city upon the old foundations. This cycle of destruction and renewal created a layered cake of history for archaeologists to uncover. Excavations reveal Punic artifacts lying beneath grand Roman villas, evidence of a cultural and physical blending that persisted long after the swords fell silent. The story of Carthage forces us to confront a difficult duality. It is a tale of horrific loss, of a vibrant culture largely wiped from the historical record by its conquerors. Yet it is also a testament to the resilience of a place, demonstrating how the very ground of a great city can hold an irresistible pull, inviting new life and new interpretations long after its original people are gone. How many of our own modern conflicts are destined to become mere layers in the earth, buried and built over by future generations? This theme of a city shattered by war finds a powerful echo further east in the desert fortress of Hatra. Hatra was a fortress of faith and stone that refused to bow. Encircled by immense walls and nearly 200 defensive towers, this circular city stood as a defiant island in the desert, repeatedly repelling the vast legions of Rome. For centuries, it flourished not through conquest but through a unique convergence of commerce and devotion. Under the Parthian Empire, its strategic location on vital caravan routes made it wealthy, but its true power was spiritual. As historian Dr. Layla Abbas explains, Hatra was a renowned sanctuary for the sun god Shamash, a holy site that drew pilgrims from across the region, their offerings fueling the city's prosperity and its fierce will to resist. This wealth was carved into the very fabric of the city. Grand temples blended Greek columns with Mesopotamian deities and Arabian artistic motifs, creating a breathtaking architectural fusion. Inscriptions found on site reveal a multicultural society governed by a council of lords, a diverse and unified populace that proved key to its defense. When Roman emperors like Trajan and Septimius Severus laid siege to its mighty walls, they were met with ingenious defensive systems and a united citizenry. The city's fall did not come from the west but from the east. In the year 241, the rising Sassanid Empire, with its powerful siege engines and relentless determination, finally breached the defenses. The city was sacked and gradually abandoned, its proud structures slowly succumbing to the encroaching sands that would ironically become its protector for centuries. Hatra's story is a powerful lesson in the strength drawn from cultural synthesis and shared belief, a strength that allowed it to defy empires for so long. Yet its eventual isolation and fall pose a haunting question. How does a society maintain its unique identity in the face of overwhelming external pressure without becoming cut off from the very world that once enriched it? This narrative of a city defined by its resilience and its faith leads us to another legendary site, one whose name echoes through biblical texts, the lost city of Tanis. Tanis stood as a northern rival to Thebes, a city of immense power built not from new stone, but from the plundered monuments of its predecessors. Obelisks and colossal statues originally erected by the great pharaoh Ramesses II at his nearby capital were systematically dismantled and moved to Tanis, creating a grand illusion. For a long time, this led scholars to believe they had finally discovered the biblical city of Ramesses, the very one mentioned in the story of the Exodus. The truth, as revealed by decades of excavation, was far more complex. Egyptologist Dr. Hannah Gross clarifies that Tanis was in fact the new political heart of Egypt during a time of fragmentation known as the Third Intermediate Period. The rulers of Tanis, seeking to legitimize their power, literally stole the glory of past kings, reassembling their monuments to create a capital that looked ancient and established from its very inception. This was a city of profound wealth and devotion, a major hub for the worship of the god Ammon. the discovery of its royal necropolis by archaeologist Pierre Montet in the 1930s was a moment of pure drama. He found tombs miraculously untouched by thieves, containing solid silver coffins and breathtaking gold masks, their craftsmanship speaking to a society of immense skill and luxury, even in a period of supposed decline. Yet for all its borrowed grandeur, Tanis could not escape the environmental realities of its location in the Nile Delta. Over centuries, the branch of the Nile that fed its harbors and irrigated its fields began to silt up. The life-giving waters receded, trade routes shifted, and the city's political influence waned. Slowly, the desert sands swept in, burying its reassembled temples and royal tombs, preserving them but also obscuring its true story for generations. The legacy of Tanis forces a profound reassessment. It challenges the simple link between archaeological sites and biblical narratives, showing how a city's identity can be deliberately constructed and later misunderstood. Its rise and fall, tied so directly to the movement of water, echoes a familiar pattern. How many other lost cities are waiting to correct our historical assumptions, buried not just by sand, but by our own misinterpretations? This journey from the Egyptian delta now takes us further up the Nile, to a kingdom that rivaled Egypt itself, the mysterious and powerful city of Meroë. The skyline of Meroë was a forest of sharp, steep pyramids, a powerful declaration of a kingdom that refused to live in Egypt's shadow. As the capital of the Kingdom of Kush for nearly 1,000 years, this city was the heart of a civilization that not only rivaled its northern neighbor, but forged its own distinct path through innovation and sheer industrial might. Its lifeblood was iron. Historian Dr. Kwame Osai points to the massive slag heaps that still surround the city, the remnants of a vast smelting operation that turned Meroë into the industrial engine of ancient Africa. The Kushites possessed an abundance of iron ore and the precious timber needed to fuel their furnaces, allowing them to produce weapons and tools on a scale that gave them a decisive economic and military advantage. This technological prowess, combined with its strategic position between the Nile and Red Sea trade routes, allowed Meroë to grow immensely wealthy from the flow of gold, ivory, and ebony. But perhaps its most striking feature was its leadership. The kingdom was frequently ruled by powerful queens known as Kandakes, formidable women who led armies and commissioned grand monuments, their authority etched into the very stones of the city. The pyramids themselves, while reminiscent of Egyptian forms, are uniquely Kushite with steeper sides and smaller bases, reflecting a culture that absorbed influences while fiercely maintaining its own identity. Yet the source of its strength also contained the seeds of its decline. Centuries of intensive iron production led to widespread deforestation, stripping the land of the very trees that powered its industry. This environmental pressure was compounded by growing economic competition from the rising kingdom of Aksum and possible shifts in climate that further strained its agricultural base. One by one, the great smelting fires were extinguished, the trade routes shifted, and the city was gradually abandoned, its pyramids and palaces slowly swallowed by the desert sands until their rediscovery in the 19th century. Excavations have since revealed a sophisticated urban center with sprawling temples and elaborate royal baths, yet Meroë remains curiously absent from many mainstream historical narratives. This omission forces a difficult question. Why has a civilization of such technological and political sophistication, a place where powerful queens ruled and industry flourished, been so consistently underestimated? The story of Meroë challenges us to expand our understanding of where innovation truly thrived in the ancient world. Its silent, undeciphered script still holds its secrets, a final puzzle from a kingdom that mastered iron and built its own pyramid fields. This legacy of a great caravan power finding its strength in trade and technology finds a poignant echo in a city that became a battlefield of empires, the Fortress of Dura-Europos. The sands that buried Dura-Europos did not destroy it, they sealed it. Perched on a cliff above the Euphrates River, this fortress city became a forgotten time capsule, preserving a moment of astonishing cultural convergence. Founded as a Hellenistic outpost around 300 years before the Common Era, it was later absorbed into the Roman Empire as a vital military garrison. But within its fortified walls, something remarkable was happening. Greek philosophers, Roman legionaries, Persian merchants, and early Christian settlers all lived side by side, their beliefs and traditions mingling in the crowded streets. This was not just a military post, it was a vibrant experiment in multicultural coexistence. Archaeologist Dr. Elena Petrova describes the city as a unique archaeological laboratory, where the suddenness of its burial preserved daily life in exquisite detail. The most profound evidence of this cultural fluidity was found not in grand temples but in ordinary houses. Within a typical residential building, excavators uncovered the world's oldest known Christian house church, its walls adorned with frescoes of biblical scenes like the Good Shepherd. Just a few blocks away, they found a Jewish synagogue, its meeting hall spectacularly decorated with vibrant murals depicting figures from the Hebrew Bible. This visual storytelling in a synagogue was unprecedented, challenging long-held assumptions that Jewish art of the period avoided human imagery. The presence of these two thriving religious communities, along with temples to Greek and Persian gods, suggests a level of practical tolerance. People of different faiths lived as neighbors, their places of worship hidden in plain sight, adapting to the same urban environment. Yet, this coexistence was set against a backdrop of constant threat. The city's final days were marked by a desperate and brutal siege by the Sasanian army in the year 256. In-depth studies of the siege works reveal a terrifying form of tunnel warfare. Sasanian sappers dug a mine under the city walls to breach them, while Roman defenders dug a countermine to stop them. In one chilling discovery, the skeletons of 19 Roman soldiers and one Sasanian warrior were found entombed together in a collapsed tunnel, a frozen moment of violent conflict. The Sasanians were ultimately successful. They sacked the city, slaughtered or enslaved its inhabitants, and then simply left. The desert sands, driven by the wind, then flowed over the crumbling walls and through the empty streets, filling the houses and the tunnels, preserving the entire city in a dry, deep freeze for nearly 17 centuries. This accidental preservation gives us an unparalleled snapshot of life on an ancient frontier. The story of Dura-Europos forces us to reconsider the past. It challenges the modern idea that ancient societies were strictly segregated by culture or faith. Here, in a single city, we see clear evidence of parallel communities adapting and thriving in close quarters. How do we reconcile this evidence of daily tolerance with the city's eventual violent end? Its layered history, with one culture literally built upon the remnants of another, introduces a powerful concept, that of the city as a palimpsest, a manuscript scraped clean and written over again, much like the ancient layers of Jericho. Jericho's story is written not in one city, but in 20, each layer stacked atop the last like pages in a deep historical novel. Here, at one of the world's oldest continuously inhabited sites, the desert sands did not bury a lost city so much as they preserved a living record of urban resilience. The city's legendary walls and tower, dating back over 10,000 years, have long been at the center of a fascinating dialogue between archaeology and scripture. Specialist Dr. Aaron Cohen notes that the debate is less about proving a single event and more about understanding how such monumental structures symbolized security for an oasis community whose lifeblood was a perpetual freshwater spring. This reliable water source created a green haven, enabling agriculture and trade to flourish through countless changes in power from the Canaanites to the Israelites and beyond. Excavations peel back these eras one by one, revealing Neolithic skulls carefully plastered and painted to recreate the faces of the dead, a profound glimpse into early ancestor veneration. Deeper down lie the ruins of Bronze Age palaces and the footprints of Roman streets, each stratum showing a community adapting to new rulers, new climates, and new ideas. Jericho's survival was not without catastrophe. Its location made it vulnerable to violent earthquakes and repeated conquests, events that would have erased a less determined settlement. Yet, after each collapse, the city was rebuilt, often directly atop the rubble of its former self. This cyclical pattern of destruction and renewal challenges our modern idea of linear progress, suggesting that the true measure of a city's greatness may not be in avoiding disaster, but in its relentless capacity to return from it. What secret does Jericho hold that allowed it to persist for millennia while other giants fell into silence? Perhaps it is the lesson that continuity is not about resisting change, but about mastering the art of beginning again. This profound endurance stands in stark contrast to the fate of cities swallowed by one of the most forbidding deserts on Earth, the Taklamakan. The Taklamakan Desert is a sea of sand so vast and treacherous its very name translates to place of no return. Yet for centuries, this was not an empty void, but a crossroads of the world. Cities like Nia and Lulan blossomed along its edges, lush oases sustained by rivers flowing from the distant Kunlun and Chanchan mountains. Here, Buddhist monks in saffron robes walked the same streets as merchants from Rome, their caravans laden with silk, jade, and spices. Historian Dr. Mei Ling points to the intricate river systems fed by ancient glacial melt as the sole reason for this improbable civilization. These waterways carved green ribbons through the dunes, allowing for orchards of peaches and apricots to flourish and supporting a population of tens of thousands. The artifacts unearthed here tell a story of stunning cultural fusion. Wooden tablets are inscribed with Kharosthi script from India, coins bear Greek portraits of kings, and intricate textiles mix Chinese motifs with Persian designs. A single city could be a tapestry woven from a dozen different cultures, a testament to the free flow of ideas along the Silk Road. This vibrant life is preserved in the desert's dry air. Archaeologists have found mummies dressed in brilliantly colored woolen cloth, their features suggesting a diverse population. They have uncovered ancient manuscripts in languages long forgotten, and the crumbling remains of Buddhist stupas that once towered over the bustling markets, their silent presence a ghostly echo of a once thriving spiritual life. But the rivers that gave these cities life were also their fatal weakness. Over centuries, a slow-motion catastrophe unfolded. The climate grew drier, and the glaciers feeding the rivers retreated. At the same time, the growing cities and their extensive farmlands drew more and more water, straining the fragile system to its breaking point. One by one, the rivers changed course or simply vanished into the thirsty sands. Without water, the fields died. The trade caravans stopped coming, seeking more reliable routes. The people had no choice but to abandon their homes to the desert. The sands then moved in, silently and patiently burying Lulan, Nia, and Cotton, sealing them in a perfect tomb for over 1,000 years. It was not until the early 20th century that explorers like Aurel Stein, following ancient maps and local legends, rediscovered these lost cities. They found libraries in the sand and temples filled with exquisite murals, all preserved by the very desert that had consumed them. The silence of the Taklamakan speaks to a profound truth about our interconnected world. These cities did not die in isolation. Their fate was tied to distant mountain glaciers and the economic networks of a globalizing ancient world. Their story is a powerful lesson in the delicate balance required to sustain life at the edge of the possible. How many of our own modern cities, built in arid lands, are dancing on the same knife's edge, dependent on distant water sources and a stable climate? The ghostly echoes of these Silk Road metropolises find a surprising parallel far to the south, in the stone ruins of Great Zimbabwe. Stone walls curve and tower against the African sky, a monumental city built without a single drop of mortar. This is Great Zimbabwe, the heart of a kingdom that for 4 centuries commanded the flow of gold from the interior of southern Africa to the bustling ports of the Indian Ocean. At its peak, this stone metropolis may have been home to 18,000 people, a thriving political and spiritual capital whose influence stretched across the ocean. The sheer scale of its construction speaks to a highly organized society. The great enclosure, with its massive, curving walls and iconic conical tower, and the hill complex, a fortified royal residence, required not just immense labor, but a sophisticated understanding of stonework and engineering. Archaeologist Dr. Thandiwe Ndilavu emphasizes that this was more than a royal palace. It was the administrative center of a vast trading empire. Within these stone ruins, excavators have found fragments of Chinese celadon porcelain, Persian glass, and coins minted in distant Arab lands. These artifacts are silent witnesses to a globalized economy that connected the African savanna to markets half a world away. The wealth of Great Zimbabwe was forged in gold. The kingdom controlled the mines of the Zimbabwean plateau, funneling the precious metal down the Save River to the coast, where it was exchanged for luxury goods. This trade created an elite class capable of commissioning such a monumental city, a testament to indigenous African power and ingenuity. Yet, this very success contained the seeds of its decline. Centuries of supporting a large population led to environmental strain. The surrounding forests were cleared for building, for fuel, and to create farmland. This deforestation triggered soil exhaustion and erosion, slowly undermining the agricultural base that fed the city. At the same time, new trade routes began to open further north, bypassing the kingdom and slowly choking its economic lifeblood. The city was not destroyed in a dramatic conquest. It was gradually, quietly abandoned, its stone structures left to the elements and the encroaching savanna. For generations, its true story was suppressed. European colonizers, unable to accept that Africans could have built such a marvel, invented fanciful tales of Phoenician or Arab founders. It was only through meticulous modern archaeology that the truth was restored. The city's origins were definitively traced to the Shona people, a powerful refutation of racist historical narratives. The dry climate and the fact that the site was largely left alone after its abandonment acted as a perfect preservative, leaving the ruins for us to decipher today. The legacy of Great Zimbabwe forces a profound reassessment of history. It stands as undeniable proof of complex urbanism and international trade in pre-colonial Africa, challenging the outdated and narrow focus on European and Asian civilizations. Why was such an influential city written out of the global story for so long? Its rediscovery does more than just fill a gap on the map. It fundamentally reshapes our understanding of the medieval world, revealing a network of exchange and power that was far more interconnected and diverse than we once believed. This narrative of a powerful trading hub finding its strength and its vulnerability in global commerce finds a powerful echo on the Arabian coast, at the ancient port of Qal'at al-Bahrain. The story of a city is often written in layers, a truth made physical at Qal'at al-Bahrain. This ancient harbor is not one lost city, but a dozen, each generation building directly upon the foundations of the last, creating a man-made hill that rises from the heart of modern Bahrain. For over 4,000 years, this was the pulsating core of the Dilmun civilization, a name whispered in Sumerian myths as a blessed paradise land. Archaeologist Dr. Rashid Al-Mansouri describes the site as a continuous record of urban life, where each stratum is a new chapter in a single, unbroken story. At its zenith, Dilmun was the indispensable middleman of the ancient world, its ships carrying copper from Oman and precious pearls from the Gulf to the mighty empires of Mesopotamia and the sophisticated cities of the Indus Valley. Its lifeblood was a seemingly miraculous resource in a coastal desert, abundant freshwater springs that welled up from the seafloor, creating an oasis that attracted traders and settlers for millennia. The excavations reveal a society of remarkable sophistication. The remains of sprawling palaces and fortified walls speak of centralized power and wealth, while temples point to a complex spiritual life. They developed their own system of writing, cultivated date palms, and mastered the sea, their economic reach etched onto countless clay tablets and intricately carved seals found at the site. These small stone seals, depicting animals and mythological scenes, were used to mark goods and documents, a testament to a bustling, bureaucratic trade economy. Vast fields of burial mounds surrounding the city further underscore its prosperity and its deep-rooted beliefs in an afterlife. Yet even this pivotal hub could not defy the tides of change. The same maritime access that brought it wealth eventually contributed to its decline. Over centuries, the harbors began to silt up, slowly strangling the port's commercial vitality. Shifting political alliances and the rise of new powers further marginalized the city. The vibrant capital of Dilmun was gradually abandoned, its mud brick structures crumbling and being buried by the relentless desert sands. But the location was too valuable to stay empty for long. Centuries later, new inhabitants, from the Greeks to the Portuguese, built their own forts and settlements directly on top of the buried Dilmun city, adding new layers to the historical mound. This continuous cycle of use makes Qal'at al-Bahrain a powerful lesson in urban persistence. It demonstrates that a city's identity can transcend its original builders, its strategic value echoing across millennia despite environmental decay and political upheaval. What does this tell us about the endurance of trade networks? It suggests that while individual cities may rise and fall, the routes of commerce themselves are incredibly resilient, often simply finding new ports along the same ancient pathways. This deep, layered history of a trading giant now leads us to a far older mystery, to a time before streets or rulers, to the dense, beehive-like settlement of Çatalhöyük. The rooftops were the streets of Çatalhöyük. Step back 9,000 years into a sprawling settlement in what is now Turkey, and you would find a city with no streets at all. Its inhabitants moved across a continuous landscape of flat roofs, descending by ladder into their individual, box-like homes. This was a society of perhaps 10,000 people, a staggering number for its time, living in a dense, honeycombed community that challenges our most basic assumptions about urban life. There were no grand palaces, no central temples, no obvious signs of a ruling class. Instead, the people of Çatalhöyük buried their dead beneath the plastered floors of their homes, living for generations alongside the bones of their ancestors. The walls of these houses were their canvas, adorned with vibrant murals of hunting scenes and abstract patterns, and decorated with the plastered skulls of bulls, powerful symbols that hint at a complex spiritual world. Leading excavator Dr. Ian Hodder points to this unique arrangement as evidence of a deeply egalitarian social structure, where family and ritual, rather than a centralized authority, held the community together. Their wealth and skill are evident in the artifacts they left behind. Exquisitely crafted obsidian tools and mirrors speak of a sophisticated understanding of volcanic glass, likely traded from distant sources. Carefully molded clay figurines, from plump women to animal shapes, reveal an artistic tradition focused on themes of fertility and the natural world. For nearly 2,000 years, this unique experiment in communal living thrived. Then it was abandoned. The reasons remain debated, but a changing climate that brought drier conditions and pressure on local resources may have slowly frayed the social fabric that held them together. The empty mud brick structures eventually crumbled, were buried by wind-blown earth, and were utterly forgotten until a team of archaeologists stumbled upon the mound in the 1950s. The silence of Çatalhöyük poses a fundamental question. What defines a city? Is it merely a large population, or does it require kings, monuments, and armies? This ancient proto-city suggests that our path to urban life could have taken a radically different turn, one based on shared belief and social cohesion rather than top-down control. Its story forces us to reconsider the very origins of community. How did these first great settlements manage the one resource without which no society, egalitarian or hierarchical, could hope to survive? The answer lies in the ingenious ways they mastered water, an art perfected by civilizations like the Garamantes with their subterranean tunnels. Water was the invisible architecture upon which every desert megacity was built. Imagine the sheer ingenuity required to sustain a population of thousands in the heart of a sun-scorched landscape. This was not a matter of simple wells, but of complex civilization-scale engineering. Hydrologist Dr. Carlos Mendez explains that these advanced systems, from underground tunnels to vast cisterns, were the very reason such urban centers could exist at all. They concentrated populations in otherwise uninhabitable areas, creating hubs for trade and culture. Yet this mastery came with a profound vulnerability. A city's entire existence was a delicate balancing act, perpetually threatened by the environment it had temporarily conquered. The Nabateans of Petra were true artists of this craft. They did not merely collect rainwater, they orchestrated its flow. Their system was designed to capture the region's rare but violent flash floods. A network of carefully positioned dams and diversion walls would channel these torrents away from the city center and into a series of carved canals and reservoirs. Every drop was precious, stored in enormous rock-cut cisterns that could hold millions of gallons, ensuring a stable supply through years of drought. This allowed them to cultivate gardens and support a metropolis in a barren canyon, a testament to planning that looked generations ahead. Contrast this with the fate of Ubar. Its wealth, derived from the frankincense trade, depended on drawing water from deep underground caverns to sustain its people and the endless caravans of camels. For centuries this worked, but this was a finite resource, a prehistoric aquifer that could not be replenished as quickly as it was consumed. The city's downfall was not a sudden drought, but a slow-motion crisis of its own making. The overuse of the aquifer, combined with the geological structure of the land, likely caused the cavern roofs to collapse, swallowing the heart of the city. It was a catastrophic lesson in unsustainable consumption. This pattern repeats across the ancient world. The Garamantes relied on their fagaras, the Indus Valley cities on their precise canal networks, all brilliant adaptations to a dry world. But each system had its limits. When the climate shifted, becoming even drier, or when populations grew beyond what the water could support, these engineering marvels became monuments to a failed struggle. The tunnels silted up, the cisterns ran dry, and the fertile fields turned to dust. This reliance on a single, fragile resource made them exquisitely sensitive to any change, whether environmental or political. The echoes of these ancient water crises are unmistakable in our modern world. Major cities today pump groundwater at unsustainable rates, their aquifers dropping just as they did beneath Ubar. Polluted rivers and shifting rainfall patterns threaten the water security of millions. The question is not whether we face similar challenges, but whether we will learn from the past. Can the principle of the Qal'at, of working with the landscape to conserve and distribute every precious drop, inspire new solutions for our own age of desertification and scarcity? These ancient strategies remind us that technology alone is not enough. It must be paired with a deep respect for the limits of the resource itself. This precarious relationship with water was just one part of a larger economic machine that powered these urban giants. The wealth of a megacity was not measured in gold alone, but in the sheer diversity of goods flowing through its gates. These sprawling urban centers were the vital nodes in a global network long before the word globalization existed. A single merchant caravan crossing the desert might carry Chinese silk destined for Rome, Arabian frankincense for Egyptian temples, and African ivory for Mesopotamian palaces. This constant, sprawling exchange of goods and ideas was the true economic lifeline, pumping resources and innovation into cities like Palmyra, Ubar, and Great Zimbabwe. Without these routes, their monumental architecture and cultural institutions would have been impossible to build. The famed Silk Road was not a single path, but a web of overland trails connecting the Mediterranean to the Pacific. The incense route funneled fragrant resins from southern Arabia to the altars of the ancient world. The trans-Saharan networks moved salt south and gold north across an ocean of sand. These were the superhighways of their day, and the cities that controlled the crossroads amassed immense power. Economist Dr. Fatima Al-Jamil explains that these hubs rarely produced the most valuable goods themselves. Instead, their genius lay in becoming indispensable intermediaries. They provided secure passage, taxed the endless stream of luxury items, and offered markets where goods could be exchanged. This steady revenue stream allowed them to fund armies, build infrastructure, and develop their own specialized industries, from metalworking to textile production. It also created a magnetic pull, attracting a diverse population of merchants, translators, and artisans, which in turn fostered the unique cultural blends we see in their art and architecture. The physical evidence of this trade is scattered across the globe, a testament to its incredible scale. Roman glass has been unearthed in royal tombs in Korea. Cowrie shells from the Maldives have been found in the ruins of Great Zimbabwe. Caches of African ivory were buried with Mesopotamian kings. Each of these artifacts is a silent witness to a journey of thousands of miles, a chain of human connection that linked continents. But this reliance on long-distance commerce was also a profound vulnerability. The collapse of a trade network could strangle a city as effectively as a drought. When the Romans developed more efficient sea routes to India, the land-based caravans that were Petra's lifeblood began to dwindle, slowly starving the rose-red city of its income. The destruction of Carthage was not just a military defeat. It was an economic takeover as Rome seized its lucrative trade routes and commercial dominance. A shift in political alliances, the rise of a competing empire, or even the discovery of a new passage could reroute the flow of wealth, leaving a once powerful metropolis isolated and impoverished. This raises a pressing question for our own time. Our modern global economy, with its intricate supply chains and digital financial networks, is in many ways the direct descendant of these ancient trade routes. Are we any less vulnerable to a sudden disruption? The fate of these lost cities suggests that economic interdependence, for all its benefits, creates a fragile web where a break in one thread can unravel an entire system. This incredible flow of commerce did more than just bring wealth. It acted as a catalyst for the most profound cultural and intellectual revolutions the world had ever seen. The echoes of a lost city do not fade when its last stone is buried. Instead, they ripple outward, carrying innovations that quietly reshape the world. The architectural and technological breakthroughs forged in these desert crucibles did not vanish with their creators. They traveled along the very trade routes the cities once controlled, seeding progress in distant lands and later ages. The Nabatean mastery of hydrology, for instance, was not an isolated marvel. Their intricate systems of dams, canals, and cisterns became a foundational text in the art of desert survival, a playbook studied and adapted by later civilizations facing similar arid challenges. In the same way, the meticulously standardized weights and measures of the Indus Valley suggest a concept of regulated trade that would become essential for all complex economies. These were not just local solutions, they were global innovations waiting to be rediscovered. Historian of technology Dr. Kenji Tanaka emphasizes that the most powerful sparks often flew from cultural collision. A city like Dura-Europos was a living laboratory for this phenomenon. The stunning murals in its synagogue depicting human figures in a narrative style represent a fascinating hybrid. They blend Jewish religious themes with the artistic techniques and visual storytelling common to the Greco-Roman world, creating a unique form of expression born directly from urban coexistence. This cultural fusion extended beyond art into practical technology. The sophisticated fogaras of the Garamantes, those underground tunnels that mined ancient aquifers, established an irrigation principle so effective it was adopted and refined across North Africa for centuries, turning other patches of desert green long after Garama itself was silent. Sometimes the influence is etched in stone, waiting for a modern eye to recognize its significance. The grand temples of Hatra, for example, feature columns with a distinct, simple design that art historians call Proto-Doric. These pillars predate the classical Greek versions we are so familiar with, suggesting that the ideas flowing through this desert crossroads may have contributed to architectural styles we now associate entirely with the West. Even the seemingly mundane becomes revolutionary upon closer inspection. The urban plan of Mohenjo-Daro, with its emphasis on public sanitation and coordinated drainage, represents a very early blueprint for a society that prioritizes communal health over individual grandeur. These contributions force a humbling realization. What we often celebrate as entirely new discoveries are frequently the rediscovery of ancient principles. Our progress is built upon forgotten foundations, layers of knowledge that were buried, not erased. The collapse of a single urban center could not contain the ideas it had set in motion. This legacy raises a pressing question for our own era of rapid innovation. How do we ensure that the digital and technological knowledge we are generating today is preserved against the slow decay of time or the sudden shock of disaster? The very act of asking this question connects us to the archaeologists who dedicated their lives to pulling these cities back from the sands, using methods that are themselves a story of brilliant innovation. The search for these lost cities has been transformed by a technological revolution, a quiet shift from shovels to satellites. Archaeologists can now map entire urban landscapes buried for millennia without ever disturbing the sand that protects them. Pioneers like Dr. Sarah Parcak use sophisticated satellite imagery to scan vast desert expanses from orbit, identifying subtle discolorations in the soil or minute variations in the landscape that betray the presence of buried walls and ancient roadways. This bird's eye view pinpoints exactly where to look, turning a needle in a haystack into a targeted scientific investigation. On the ground, tools like ground-penetrating radar send pulses of energy into the earth, painting a detailed picture of what lies beneath by reading the echoes that bounce back from hidden structures. Drones soar overhead, capturing high-resolution photographs that are stitched together to create precise three-dimensional maps of a site, revealing patterns invisible to the human eye standing on the ground. Perhaps the most powerful of these tools is LiDAR, or light detection and ranging. When aimed from an aircraft at a forested or sandy area, its laser pulses can penetrate the canopy or the top layers of sediment to measure the bare earth beneath, digitally stripping away the vegetation and dunes to expose the ghostly footprints of entire cities. We saw this with the rediscovery of Ubar, where ancient caravan tracks converging in the desert were first spotted from space. At Tanis, magnetic surveys have allowed researchers to map the outlines of palaces and tombs hidden deep beneath the delta silt, guiding excavations with unprecedented accuracy. These non-invasive methods are a form of respect for the fragile sites they study. They minimize destruction and maximize the recovery of data, preserving context that is often lost in traditional digs. The analysis extends beyond structures to the very soil and artifacts themselves. Chemical analysis of ancient pottery can trace the origin of clay, revealing long-distance trade networks. Studying isotopes in animal bones and plant remains provides a clear record of past diets and climates, telling us not just how people built their cities, but how they lived within them. This technological leap does more than just find new sites, it actively protects our shared heritage. Satellites and drones regularly monitor remote locations for the scars of looting or the encroachment of modern development, creating a digital record that can last forever, even if the physical site is lost. As we look to the future, emerging artificial intelligence can sift through mountains of satellite data to identify potential sites faster than any human, while three-dimensional modeling can digitally reconstruct a lost metropolis, allowing anyone to walk its virtual streets. How will these tools reshape our connection to the past, making it more immediate and accessible than ever before? Yet for all this power to reveal, these very sites face a new wave of threats that challenge their survival. A silent city can survive for millennia, only to be shattered in a single lifetime by new and relentless threats. The very sands that once protected these ancient wonders now offer little defense against the forces of human greed and a changing world. Looting is a quiet, systematic violence. Tomb raiders and organized criminals descend on unguarded sites, digging pits in the dead of night to pull statues, jewelry, and inscribed tablets from the earth. They are not archaeologists. Their goal is not understanding but profit, feeding a voracious black market for antiquities. At a place like Dura-Europos, such looting strips away the priceless context that tells us who lived there and how they organized their daily lives. A golden mask is valuable, but the soil layer it was found in, the pottery shard lying next to it, the orientation of the body in the tomb, these are the details that weave the full story. When looters take the treasure and scatter the evidence, they tear pages from the book of human history, leaving behind a plundered, meaningless hole in the ground. Even more insidious is the slow, global pressure of climate change. As rising temperatures intensify desertification, once stable dunes begin to shift, exposing long-buried walls and foundations to the erosive power of wind and sudden, violent rainstorms. These structures, preserved for centuries in a dry, deep freeze, quickly crumble when exposed to the elements. Archaeologist Dr. Lena Kowalski points to a more subtle danger: the way rising temperatures and shifts in soil moisture can accelerate the decay of fragile organic materials. A wooden statue, a woven basket, or a leather scroll that survived for thousands of years in the dry desert air can rot away in a matter of decades under these new conditions. This is a race against time that no one anticipated. Meanwhile, the sprawl of modern cities and new agricultural projects relentlessly encroach on the edges of these archaeological zones. A new housing development might be built directly atop the unexcavated suburbs of a lost metropolis, forever sealing that portion of the past under concrete. In conflict zones, the threat becomes overtly destructive. The calculated demolition of ancient temples in Palmyra was not collateral damage. It was a targeted erasure of history, an attempt to annihilate a symbol of cultural diversity and tolerance for ideological reasons. Warfare does not just risk bombs falling on old stones. It creates a vacuum of law and order where looting flourishes, and it diverts all resources away from preservation, leaving sites utterly defenseless. In response, global organizations like UNESCO work to designate and protect World Heritage Sites, creating a framework for international cooperation and funding. But a designation on a map is not a magic shield. Enforcement remains desperately challenging in regions gripped by instability and poverty. This reality forces a difficult ethical question upon the global community. Do these lost cities belong only to the nations within whose borders they lie, or are they part of a shared human inheritance that we all have a responsibility to protect? The act of safeguarding this fragile legacy is as complex as the history it seeks to preserve, leading directly to the profound dilemmas of how we uncover and display these reclaimed treasures. Unearthing a lost city is far more than a scientific exercise. It is an encounter with the sacred and the ancestral. This work forces a difficult question: who truly holds the right to tell the story of a people who have been silent for centuries? The ethical dilemma is profound. An archaeologist's trowel might expose a royal tomb, but in doing so, it could disturb a site that living descendants consider holy. It might recover priceless artifacts, but sever them from the cultural context that gives them meaning. For too long, the field operated under a colonial mindset, where treasures were extracted from their homelands to fill the museums of distant nations, leaving behind a legacy of cultural loss and deep mistrust. Ethicist Dr. Aisha Bello argues that modern archaeology must actively confront this painful history. It is no longer enough to simply uncover the past. The process must be rebuilt on a foundation of collaboration with local and indigenous communities, prioritizing their voices and their connection to the heritage being studied. This means moving beyond mere permission and toward genuine partnership, where projects are co-designed and the benefits from economic gains to educational opportunities are shared equitably. Consider the ongoing debates surrounding the Elgin marbles. These magnificent sculptures were removed from the Parthenon in Athens in the 19th century and now reside in the British Museum, while Greece has long campaigned for their return. Similarly, the Benin bronzes, thousands of brass plaques and sculptures looted by British forces from the Kingdom of Benin in present-day Nigeria, are scattered across museums in Europe and America. These are not abstract artifacts. For the people of Greece and Nigeria, they are vital pieces of their national soul and cultural identity, forcibly taken during an era of imperial power. The question of restitution is not simply about legal ownership, but about moral justice and the right of a culture to reclaim its own narrative. In stark contrast, the management of Great Zimbabwe offers a powerful model of success. Here, research and tourism are deeply intertwined with local community involvement, ensuring that the story of the stone ruins is told by and for the people whose ancestors built them. This approach transforms archaeology from an act of extraction into one of empowerment. Professional archaeological bodies now publish in-depth guidelines that emphasize this ethical imperative. The core principles are clear: to minimize harm, to ensure informed consent, and to use discoveries for education and cultural revitalization rather than exploitation. This can mean leaving certain sacred sites undisturbed, or carefully repatriating human remains to descendant communities for reburial. It requires a fundamental shift in perspective, where the archaeologist acts not as a treasure hunter, but as a custodian and a facilitator. The ultimate goal is to reconcile the scientific pursuit of knowledge with the moral imperative to respect the living. How do we balance our hunger to understand the past with the dignity of those for whom that past is not lost, but is a living, breathing part of their present? This complex reflection on ethics naturally leads to another vital question. If these cities belong to all of humanity, how do we ensure their stories are not locked away in academic journals, but are shared with the public whose heritage they represent? The thrill of discovery is not confined to the archaeologist's trowel. It lives in the hushed awe of a museum visitor gazing upon a golden mask from Tanis, or in the quiet focus of someone at home navigating a digital reconstruction of Petra's bustling markets. These lost cities capture our imagination because they are more than ruins, they are unfinished stories. We look at a silent stone face from Meroë, or walk the colonnaded streets of Palmyra in a virtual world, and we feel a direct, almost personal connection to the people who built them. This public fascination is a powerful force, fueled by an innate curiosity about grand mysteries and the intimate human dramas etched into every crumbling wall. This allure translates into a vast tapestry of modern media, from gripping non-fiction books like The Lost City of Z that chronicle the search for El Dorado, to video games and blockbuster films that reimagine these places as settings for adventure, allowing us to explore their legends firsthand. Educator Dr. James Reed observes that this engagement is now a two-way street. Museums are no longer static displays of artifacts, they are dynamic portals. The visitor center at Petra uses interactive displays to demonstrate Nabatean water engineering, making ancient innovation tangible. Online, digital archives upload high-resolution scans of pottery from Meroë or cuneiform tablets from Mesopotamia, making them accessible to a global audience with a single click. Citizen science projects invite ordinary people to sift through satellite imagery from their own computers, helping professionals identify potential archaeological sites. This democratization of discovery fosters a profound sense of shared heritage, making everyone a stakeholder in the story and inspiring the next generation of historians, engineers, and explorers. This collective engagement has a tangible impact. Thoughtful tourism, driven by genuine interest, generates essential revenue for local communities and funds ongoing conservation. It transforms a site from a neglected ruin into a valued resource, creating a practical incentive for its protection. Yet this very interest must be carefully managed. The footfall of millions of visitors can cause erosion, and the pressure to commercialize can risk turning a sacred place into a mere backdrop for souvenirs. The central question remains: why does the story of a city swallowed by sand resonate so deeply within us? Perhaps it is because these places hold up a mirror to our own civilization. They show us pinnacles of achievement and the sobering reality of collapse, reminding us of the timeless forces of climate, commerce, and human ambition. Keeping their stories alive is not just about preserving the past, it is about arming ourselves with the wisdom to navigate the future. This collective reflection on urban life, past and present, naturally leads us to a final, crucial consideration. What do the silent warnings of these buried giants tell us about the destiny of our own sprawling megacities? The silent stones of these lost cities hold more than just history. They contain a blueprint for our own urban future. The brilliant water management of Petra, a city that flourished in a desert canyon, offers a masterclass in conservation. They captured every drop of rain, channeling it through a network of dams and cisterns to sustain tens of thousands. Imagine applying that same principle of maximizing every resource to a modern metropolis grappling with drought. Or consider the Indus Valley, where wide streets and a sophisticated, covered drainage system prioritized public health millennia ago. Their focus was not on monumental palaces, but on creating a functional, healthy urban environment for all citizens, a philosophy that seems remarkably contemporary. These ancient examples demonstrate that long-term urban survival is not about conquering nature, but about adapting to its limits, fostering social cohesion, and building economic systems that are flexible enough to withstand shock. Leading urban planner Dr. Maria Lopez points directly to this ancient wisdom. She explains that the Garamantes tapped into renewable groundwater with their Fagara tunnels, a sustainable model if managed carefully. In contrast, the Indus Valley's investment in public infrastructure, like its city-wide drainage, created a foundation for communal resilience, yet the past also rings with clear warnings. The catastrophic collapse of Ubar, sucked into the earth by its own overuse of a finite aquifer, is a stark lesson in the dangers of exhausting a resource. The fate of Carthage, isolated and destroyed by a rival power, underscores the peril of becoming cut off from the global economic networks that provide security and innovation. We are already seeing these ancient patterns replay in our modern world. Cape Town's recent brush with Day Zero, a moment when it nearly ran out of water, serves as a direct parallel to the water crises that crippled desert civilizations. The city's implementation of severe water restrictions and a public campaign for conservation was a modern echo of the kind of societal adaptation that once kept Petra alive. Studying these buried giants gives us a crucial perspective on the life cycles of cities. It allows us to see collapse not as a sudden event, but as a process, often triggered by a failure to respect environmental boundaries or to maintain social and economic flexibility. This knowledge is not about predicting doom, but about empowering us to make different choices. What if new suburbs were designed with Nabatean-inspired rainwater harvesting built into every home? Could the Indus Valley's focus on public works over personal glorification inspire a new era of infrastructure investment? By learning from these silent teachers, we gain the tools to build communities that are not just larger, but wiser and ultimately more enduring. The echoes of Petra and the silent pyramids of Meroë speak to an enduring truth. Our greatest achievements are forever intertwined with our profound vulnerability to the natural world. These lost megacities stand as monumental testaments to human ingenuity, yet their ruins are also stark reminders of a single, inescapable reality. Civilization is a fragile construct. It thrives on a delicate balance of innovation, cooperation, and a deep respect for the environment that sustains it. The stories of these buried giants are not just ancient history. They are a blueprint and a warning for our own era of sprawling urban expansion and escalating climate threats. The ingenuity of the Nabatean water engineers, the global trade networks of Palmyra, and the communal planning of the Indus Valley all offer powerful lessons for a sustainable future. They show us that long-term survival depends on our ability to adapt, to share resources, and to build with the long-term health of our planet in mind. Let the ghosts of these forgotten cities inspire you to delve deeper into our shared past. We would love to hear which lost metropolis captures your imagination most. Was it the rose-red city of Petra, the industrial might of Meroë, or the enigmatic silence of the Indus Valley? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this journey through history's greatest mysteries, subscribe for more explorations into the past. Remember, the sands of time may cover great cities, but they can never fully erase the legacy of human creativity or the timeless quest for understanding that connects us all.